Welcome back to Channel 7 News. We are pleased to be joined by USC 394 Superintendent Randal Chickadonz. Mr. Chickadonz, thanks for joining us.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
We're glad to have you on the show. It has been a stressful few months for schools across the nation, but narrowing the focus to Rose Hill schools, how would you assess how the district dealt with the pandemic?
It has been stressful. You're correct. I think what we would say is we've done our best. I think the protocols we put in place, the safety protocols, have really helped. I say that because our community and the environment that our community is in, when we take a look at the COVID virus numbers, the incident rates, and the positive test rates and active case rates in our area, they've been kind of a hot mess for a while. But in our district, we really hadn't seen that up until, just before the Thanksgiving break. And so I would say for the first several months of the school year, I think the district performed very well because we were able to mitigate what we were seeing in the community to a much lesser rate inside the district. So I think the things we put in place have really helped.
Mm-hmm. The decision was made. The decision was made to go remote for all schools before Thanksgiving. Then after Thanksgiving, the high school and middle school remained remote while the primary and intermediate schools went back to in-person learning. Can you walk us through how those decisions were made?
Well, yeah, I can try. What we really try to do is look at the virus data that we have in our district. And then it is influenced by the community, but really what's happening in our district to try to make decisions that are based on trying to make sure that our kids are in the best and safest environment that we have. Before Thanksgiving, the 1st of November, we were seeing case rates inside at the high school, for instance. At the high school, we had, I think, maybe 3 active cases at once they're happening. And then within a couple day period, we doubled that. And so the high school had 6 active cases. And then within the next day, we had 11 more pending cases. So we were waiting on test results back from 11 more students. And it really blew up pretty fast. And so what we saw kind of happening was our community environment starting to influence our district environment a little more heavily. A couple of other things that I think are important to mention, and just the fact that we've not seen many, only a couple of cases that the exposure we can track back to happening at school. Most of the exposure we've seen in positive cases have happened outside of the school and then has been brought in. And that just seemed to be influencing a lot more right before that Thanksgiving break. And so we were having trouble with that. And then at our elementary school, we were really having a problem with, it was an adult issue. We were having problems with the number of teachers and support staff at the elementary that may not have been all positive cases happening, but their children themselves, their own children, were having to stay home, so they had to stay home with them, or they were a close contact to a positive state, so they had to stay home. So coverage of the adults at the elementary school was an issue, and so that's what influenced the decision for the K-12 or pre-K-12 to go to remote before Thanksgiving. Was just the number of positive cases and potential cases happening at the secondary level, and then the number of cases that were having to their areas at the elementary. Then when we got through that, we came back and the adult issues started to reduce themselves. And the sub coverage was a little bit better if we didn't have middle school, high school going to school. The numbers at the middle school, high school, the environment that we were talking about hadn't changed any. And so it was our belief that at the middle school, high school, those numbers would remain the same and we weren't going to see much of a reduction in these last couple of weeks. And so that was partly what led us to believe that the staying remote at the 6-12 level was still the best. The other thing that kind of influenced that is what the health professionals are telling us is that our elementary age kids are not highly susceptible to contracting the virus, and they are not a super spreader. They don't expose others at the same rate as our older adults do. And so that was one of the reasons we decided to bring the elementary back, is just because their exposure rate and their susceptible rates are much less than the older students. So the environment, we believe, was a little safer for our pre-K 5 kids than it was for our 6-12 kids.
As we're recording this interview, we are 1 month from the start of the second semester. Can you provide us a timeline for making decisions in regards to the second semester and how the district will be learning?
And that's a great question. I guess what I would start with is I want to make sure that students and teachers and parents have as much time as possible to prepare for whatever we have to do. I mean, I understand that there's it can be a great burden on all of the people involved, depending on what the decision is. And so we want to give as much time as possible. So that's our first thing. What that magic timeline is, I don't know what that is for sure. I think probably a month is too much time to make a decision. We want it to be a decision based on accurate information and as little about speculation as we possibly can. Although it does take some sense of a crystal ball effect to decide what's happening in the future. We want that to be as much pertinent information as possible. I think probably a month away is probably a little too much. A couple weeks is better. So the closer we can get to the start of that school time, the better it is. But we know that we've got the winter break time period here that's going to affect that time frame a little bit. So that's one of those things that we'll try to make a recommendation coming up very soon. We have a board meeting come up here in another week with the Board of Education. And our intent is to have a recommendation for them so we can have some discussion and hope that maybe we've got enough pertinent information that something could be made before we would go to winter break. That would be our goal. I can't say that would happen. And I can't say that if the community's virus data worsens and really tanks, that the decision we make now couldn't be changed over the winter break. So it's again one of those crystal ball kind of things. But we want to give as much time as possible, but I would really like for us to take a look at the most pertinent information.
Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Chickadonz. Have a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Thank you. You as well.
Charlie Black is coming up next with sports, so don't go away.